Hey guys, this is Dana, and this is episode number 71 of the Ask a Question show, the show in which you ask a question about any type of narcissistic or otherwise abusive or toxic relationship or situation, and I, along with the rest of the community here, will do our very best to help answer it. Our goal is to give you the feedback and the support that you need so that you can move forward in getting all of the clarity, closure, and healing possible. And so today's question comes from John, and John says, Dear Dana, for over a year now, I have been trying to understand what I was dealing with my ex girlfriend. Even today, without having to deal with all of the disruptive behaviors I was attempting to endure, my inner life still has no peace and there is an ongoing sadness. My mind still reels, trying to put together all of the patterns of behavior and what I did wrong and what she did wrong, and just asking why was she so incredibly difficult? For the first time in my life, I thought I really found someone I wanted to spend my life with. I had never connected with somebody on so many levels before. I didn't even know it was possible to feel so much in common with someone or to feel so happy in another person's presence. Nevertheless, within a few months, her behaviors that seemed very irrational began to emerge. I would try to discuss them with her, but she would simply deny my complaint and turn the focus back on me, saying I was fault finding and critical. Without wasting your time with details, eventually there emerged such a plethora of disturbing and upsetting behaviors that the relationship became impossible. She was simply incapable of taking responsibility for her behavior. Ever since, I've been trying to understand what in the hell I was dealing with and why it's still making me crazy. I guess a part of me still hopes for hope that something can change. I hate to peg her as narcissistic, but many of the traits I've heard and read have fit her to a T. I wanted to ask you, why is it that these types are so hard to let go of, and why can't I just move on? Why am I still trying to figure her out and find a solution? And how do I make the pain go away and move on with my life? I honestly don't think I've ever experienced anything so exasperating or sadly disappointing in my life. I just don't know how to move on. So, okay. Thank you for your question. And you ask a lot of really great questions within your question. So I'm going to try to address them one at a time here. So the first one is, why is she so hard to let go of? Well, these types of relationships, especially when you're dealing with this kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality, which it sounds like you were, when you have a relationship where the good times are really good and the bad times are really bad, it's hard to make sense of that because normal people in normal relationships don't have that, right? Like most normal people are pretty consistent. Like we all have our quirks, but it's not this like intensity. And when a person's in a relationship with a difficult or a manipulative person, narcissist, sociopath, kind of just by any name you want to call them, difficult person in general is enough to be a deal breaker, really. Like they don't need to have a personality disorder to be deal breakers, right? So when we're dealing with that, it's so confusing, and they keep us they're masters at manipulation, so they continually keep their partner kind of second guessing themselves, which it sounds like you had a lot of what was going on here. And because we're trying to make sense of it all, like how could the good times be so good, how could the bad times be so bad? And then like coupled with the fact that I doubt that there was any real closure to this relationship. It was probably, it sounds like things got bad enough that you just kind of had to peace out, and that is really hard when there's no closure. Again, nothing about a relationship with a manipulative or difficult person is like anything that we've ever gone through, right? Which is why we get sucked into it, and it's why we have a hard time moving on after it, because there, normal relationships, when people aren't getting along, there's kind of this discussion of, it's not a sudden thing, and it's not kind of, they don't instantly break up with us, and we don't get pushed to the limit and finally have to just leave. Like a normal relationship, people are talking about their problems, there's kind of this ongoing discussion. There might come a time where it's sort of like, you know what, we are just on two very different pages, we're not going in the same direction, I wish you well. And then that's how like a normal relationship ends. It doesn't have this kind of grand finale type feel to it. So that's why they're kind of hard to move past, because they're unlike anything we've ever seen before. And so then you're asking, why can't you move on? Well, okay, so two things really come to my mind, at least. Is, they do a good job at creating this manufactured soulmate type connection, and this is what you're experiencing with, like, wow, this woman's amazing. I've never met anybody like this before. We have so much in common, and this is somebody that I really want to spend my life with. It's hard to give that up, but it's not real, right? And so what's important, and even frankly, even if it is real, like even if that really is real, there's enough deal breaker stuff there that's also real that needs to be deal breaker stuff. And so when we're trying to get into a relationship, an ideal, maybe not even ideal, like a reasonable, like a reasonable relationship to be in is one where there is honesty and sincerity and solutions oriented communication. Anything else will not work. Like, you can't be in that, you, me, any of us cannot be in a relationship where you're with a person that is incapable of taking responsibility for their behavior. Like, there is no fixing that. And so when we're dating people, it's really important that we use at least those first 3 months as kind of this interview process, because everybody can put like their best side forward, and everybody does, really, right? Like, during those first 3 months of a relationship, it takes time to really see a person for who they are. But it helps if we're really clear on kind of what our deal breaker stuff is. So if that does start to surface, that we're not so caught up in this whirlwind of affection and attention and, seeing everything that's right about the person, that we're glossing over like major, major deal breaker stuff. So, you know, so the whole soulmate connection, the holding on to hope that it could be different. This is why people stay in bad relationships. And we tend to hold on to hope that given enough time or patience or understanding or therapy or rehab or kind of, if we can just get our partner to understand that they have problematic behavior, that they could change and that we could have this great relationship with them. But this is also assuming that our partner wants to have a really great relationship. A lot of highly manipulative people don't. They like the drama, they like the chaos. They're motivated by power and control, whereas the rest of us are not. So we're not motivated. We're not trying to win a game over our partner. We're trying to, actually have like a mutually fulfilling and satisfying relationship. We're having that open and honest and sincere communication. This is why things are so crazy making. So let me just sidetrack here for a second. So the book that we were reading in our book club, I have a book club on my forum, this month, was called The Verbally Abusive Relationship. And I have all of my notes on my website, which I will link to. But she really brings up this really great point that that abusive people and their partners live in two very different realities. And so she calls it reality one, reality two. I personally think that there are three realities and three mindsets, but that's beside the point. But she talks about reality one people have this idea of power. They need to get power over somebody else. Reality two people tend to want to co-create these relationships. And so where we get into trouble is when we're thinking that if we're in a reality two understanding and mindset, that our partner is too. And so she covers this in the book, and it's fantastic. And she talks about how, like, there are these two different mindsets out there, and this is why people tend to stay stuck in abusive relationships or bad relationships, because they just keep thinking if they can get through to their partner, that they'll have this kind of, great relationship, but this never manifests because their whole goal is to get power and control over the situation and over their partner. They're not looking to have a happy relationship. So I think that was really important to bring up, because that was a huge aha moment for me, and understanding more of my situations. Like, it will not work. If you've got a person that's not accountable or responsible for their behavior, if they're not validating your concerns about their behavior, and it sounds like it's a lot, right? I mean, it was like a plethora of bad behavior. That's not workable. That's not a partner. That's a project. And you don't want to date a person that's a project, because, it's, first of all, people don't like to be fixed, right? Like none of us want to be fixed. So she's not going to be open to that. She's especially not going to be open to it if she's highly manipulative and or has a personality disorder. So you're just going to really frustrate her, and then you're going to make yourself nuts because now you're spending all of his time trying to fix your partner. It's so much easier to take things slowly, get to know a person, wait for that, 3 month kind of whirlwind thing to settle down, before you really have this intense emotional investment in another person, to see if they really match your criteria for what you're looking for in your life. And then at that point to make an informed decision, is this person an actual, potential candidate for being a partner, or are they a project? Right? Avoid the projects. It doesn't work. It never, ever, ever works. So, you just have to kind of drive on. So you ask, let's see, how to make the pain go away and move on. So I think a lot of it helps to kind of reframe your understanding of the relationship and of kind of who she is. So when you're telling yourself, I really miss her, reframe that and tell yourself, I really miss who I thought she was. I really miss who I hoped she could be. I really miss the relationship that I thought we had. So it just clarifies that no, you actually don't miss her. You don't miss the plethora of disturbing and upsetting behavior. You don't miss the fact that she was incapable of taking responsibility for her behavior. You don't miss that. You miss who you thought she was, outside of that. So getting really, really clear, accepting that that is who she is, that bad behavior is who she really is. And that bad behavior, that's like problematic and it's systemic. So if a person has those kinds of qualities and character traits, that's not going to just be in a certain, like one way. That like seeps out through like every single component of their life, with the kind of the job they have, with how they are financially, how they are with friends and family. And there is no future with another adult who has no accountability for their actions. It would be a hellish nightmare. So, but knowing that and then really truly feeling that does take some time. And like I said, kind of really reframing that to yourself. And I mention this often, and this is worth doing too. So making yourself a list. I call this for when you miss her list. And so when you find yourself that kind of nostalgia kicking in, right? This really, it's cognitive dissonance is what it is. When this starts to kick in and you start, fantasizing about, I really miss her. Were things really that bad? Could this have worked? Am I being too critical? Blah, blah, blah. That you go back and you read this list, or you could make it into a video. And in this list, you write down specifically the most painful deal breaker behavior. So the goal of this list is you want it to snap you awake when you do have those low points and you're thinking about texting her or calling her or reopening communication or responding to her if she does contact you in down the road, because odds are she probably will, because that's kind of what they do. So it's good to be prepared for that, just on the offhand chance that does happen. And so, yeah, that's what I have for you. I will be really curious to see what everybody else has to say. And as always, lots of love to you guys. You're not alone. You're not crazy. And you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.